east by the Andaman, towards the west by the deserts, and towards the south it has a large maritime boundary and also projects itself in the Indian Ocean. That is why since centuries this area is known as the Indian Ocean. It has got its own set of dynamics which I shall be discussing with you. Now, since geographically the Himalayas separate the Indian Ocean from the north, the dynamics of China has been different. It has been more involved in the areas of South China Sea and towards the areas of the east. Similarly, Southeast Asia has also not intermingled much with the Indian subcontinent because the Indian subcontinent has got its identity because of its geographical uniqueness. Now, the countries that include are India, of course, which is the seventh largest country in the world. It is the second most populated country in the world. And also, broadly, what is the Indian subcontinent was what was the undivided India, which was there prior to the British and the Mughal rule. Now, the countries that have borders with us, including maritime borders, are 9 in number, which include, as we move clockwise, as Pakistan, Afghanistan, China, Nepal, Bhutan, Myanmar, Sri Lanka, and the Maldives. Now, these are all relatively smaller countries, except for China, of course, and Pakistan. I forgot to miss Bangladesh, which makes it a total of 9, including the 2 maritime countries. Now, before I move ahead, I just want you all to know what is geopolitics. Now, international relations are always influenced by geographical factors, which means that if a country is large, like the USA or China or Russia, it will have a greater influence. If a country has more natural resources, such as the Gulf countries, which have got oil, or certain African countries which have got minerals, they are again able to leverage this power of theirs to exert more influence. So a combination of geographical and political factors affecting a country or an area, and because of these factors, the relations it exercises with the other country is what is formed geopolitics. And geopolitics is a mixture of the words of geography and politics. And the Republic of India, being a populous democracy and the 7th largest country in the world, plays a very dominant role in the Indian subcontinent. This map, again, if you try to focus, you will be able to see the various sea lines of communication that emerge from the trading areas of the world. Before I move, I would advise you all to be very fluent and very well conversant with maps. You should be able to draw the map of all the continents and the major countries of the world, and also familiarize yourself with the various communication lines, both in the sea and also over land. This will, and also, of course, the geography of various areas, which will enable you to understand nations and geopolitics better. We have already discussed the significance of the Indian Ocean. It has got a history and the legacy wherein in the prehistoric times, it housed the Indus Valley civilization, which extended from Afghanistan into Pakistan and parts of India. And this is one of the oldest civilizations which has a major impact on the culture and on the progress and on the shaping up of the subcontinent. As far as the demography is concerned, you would see as it unfolds that while India is a democratic and a secular country, we are surrounded by countries which are either communist or which have Islam or as their state religion. The strategic importance has already been discussed. I've already said we've got 9 neighbors, including 2 maritime neighbors. We share land and sea border with all with these countries, and the countries that are are going to be discussed are as shown. So we will start with Pakistan. Now, Pakistan, or the Islamic Republic of Pakistan, was came into being after the independence of India, whereas India was divided into 2 countries, and Pakistan got East Afghanistan, East Pakistan, which is now Bangladesh, and West Pakistan as its as a separate state, which was demanded by the Indian Muslims from the British at that time. And after the struggle, it was able to get this statehood. But the Pakistan I would want to introduce to you is primarily the West Pakistan, or the Islamic Republic of Pakistan. It shares borders with India, Iran, and Afghanistan. Officially, there has been certain area of Pakistan or the Pakistan occupied Kashmir which has been ceded to China. So because of this position, it exerts influence over Afghanistan, which you will see, and it is able to have a collusivity or an alignment with China. You will also see that in the southern area, the coastline is relatively small, which means that it is not as big a maritime power as India is. The main languages spoken are Urdu, Punjabi, and Sindhi. It has got a parliamentary federal republic, but most of you are aware that it has had a very checkered past with a number of military coups. I shall not go into the specific details, and we expect you to go into the history and the governance with Pakistan. What also you must know that it is the 5th most populous country in the world, and it has got the 6th largest standing armed forces. It has had 4 major conflicts with India, which started with the annexation of Kashmir. Thereafter, when the tribals backed by the military were pushed into J&K and resulted in the Pakistan occupied Kashmir being a part of Pakistan after the ceasefire was got into effect. And this has been a bone of contention and has shaped the destiny of the 2 nations ever since. After that, there was a conflict of 1965, followed by the liberation of Bangladesh and the division of Pakistan into Bangladesh and Pakistan by the forces of Mukti Bahini in support with the supported by the Indian Army when it was attacked by Pakistan. Thereafter was the Kargil conflict, and there has always been a proxy war which has been going on in the state of Jammu and Kashmir, and also acts of terrorism which have been backed by Pakistan in the various parts of India. Pakistan is also a nuclear state. It has a large influence on the polity, and the foreign policy of the nation is shaped by the Pakistan Army. And their entire agenda and narrative in running this country is based on the hate India policy, or the fact that the India is always trying to engulf or decimate Pakistan. Thus, they are able to divide the attention and the focus of their populace and use it to their advantage in terms of maintaining the supremacy of the army, and also indulge in various terrorist and illegal activities. We are broadly aware of the type of relations that India and Pakistan enjoy, which are, very adversarial. Also, there has been a lot of alignment and collusivity between China and Pakistan, where Pakistan is able to share intelligence and support to China. In turn, China has helped Pakistan with their armament, missile, and nuclear technology, and has also started certain infrastructural development project known as the CPEC, which is the economic corridor that starts from the Pakistan occupied Kashmir to the sea coast of Pakistan. And this is a sort of a economic invasion of Pakistan, which is being done by China, because Pakistan is economically a weaker country and relies heavily on foreign aid in order to sustain itself. This is a broad primer that I wanted to give. The various studies that you have to do independently is broadly the history of Pakistan, the various wars that it has fought with us, the governance in Pakistan, the terrorism angle, and the CPEC corridor, which is being developed with the assistance and economic funding by China. Certain additional points are also listed as below. You would also find it useful to study about the Baluchistan movement, wherein the province of Baluch and the Baluchis have been fighting for a separate identity and a separate homeland. You must know about the partition, Kashmir issues, wars in India, support to terrorism, the growth of Taliban, the Baluch issue, and the CPEC. Okay, now with this, we move on to Afghanistan. Afghanistan has a 106-kilometer border within India in the POK. Historically, it had very close ties because it was a part of the Indian Empire during the Mauryan period, and later on under the Sikh Empire. It is known as the Islamic Republic of Afghanistan, which is about 652,000 square kilometers of a mountainous region. Islam was introduced in this area in the 7th century, and the strategic and the geographic importance of Afghanistan comes from the fact that it is the buffer state or a frontline state between Russia and the areas to the south. So this has assumed a lot of importance for the United States, which gives a lot of arms aid to Pakistan because it has to maintain a buffer with Afghanistan. It is also known as a graveyard of civilizations because historically it has been proven that none of the armies or none of the civilization could permanently subjugate Afghanistan. The British tried it and were defeated. The Russians found their nemesis here. And we are all aware that the United States has also now withdrawn its forces from Afghanistan. Afghanistan is a member of the United Nations. The president is Ashraf Ghani. And as of now, while we speak, Maulvi Habibullah, who's the leader of the Taliban, is fighting with the government forces of Ashraf Ghani. And since there has been a vacuum created by the withdrawal of the NATO forces and the US forces, the control of this country is now gradually shifting into the hands of Pakistan. The Taliban, as you are all well aware, is an offshoot of the Deobandi Islamist movement, and they practice the Sharia laws. They are staunch Islamists, and this movement, which is also translated to be what is known as students. So it was started in the madrasas of Pakistan. Gradually, the Afghanis enrolled, and this has become a movement which has very, very extremist views and ways of going about things. They expect, and they have banned cinemas. They expect all the women to be covered from head to toe, all men to grow long beards. The TVs are banned, the internet is banned. So their policies are very, very regressive. As of now, the situation is fluid, and the entire world is watching the happenings of Afghanistan. Indian government had invested a lot of infrastructure projects in Afghanistan. It had extended diplomatic support to the legitimate government, and we shall have to wait and see the kind of stance that we continue to develop and how things unfold. So the takeaway points are: you should be aware of what is Taliban, what is the history that has been in Afghanistan, the conflict between the Russians and the Afghanis, the support that the Taliban gave to Osama bin Laden and the other extremist terrorists, and also you should be able to forecast how the situation in the subcontinent will be affected by the Talibanization of Afghanistan. One of the impacts it can have is that the area around Kashmir may get a little more unstable or vulnerable. So with this much of a background, I'll now move on to the next country, which is the People's Republic of China. These are the points that I've just covered about Afghanistan. I did not shift to these points because I wanted you to see the map. Now we move on to China. Now China is also known as the Middle Kingdom, and this is what is known as the People's Republic of China. It is the world's most populous country with 1.43 billion as the population, and it is the world's third or fourth largest country. The entire country is divided into 5 autonomous regions, whereas the TAR, or the Tibet Autonomous Region, is the area which is to our north. The Chinese civilization was one of the first civilization of the world. And in 1912, the Republic of China was established by Sun Yat-sen. However, after the revolution by the Mao Zedong and the communists took over and formed what is known now as the People's Republic of China. Whereas the Republic of China took refuge on what is known as Taiwan. Li Jinping is the Premier of China, which is a one-party state. We have had a very complex relationship with China. Initially, after our independence, the relations were good. The policy of Panchsheel was followed, and the slogan of Hindu Chini Bhai Bhai was propagated. India also facilitated China to have a permanent Security Council seat in the United Nations. However, the relationships got soured because of the extension of asylum to the Dalai Lama by India. After that, because of escalation of certain border skirmishes, the 1971 conflict with China came about, and this resulted in a defeat for India, and a large area of Aksai Chin was annexed by China. It was able to make various inroads in the areas of our northeast, which is per se Arunachal Pradesh. However, they came back, and after that, the relationship between these two countries has been dictated by its border issues. We have a large border with China, which includes the state of Jammu and Kashmir and Ladakh, Himachal Pradesh, Uttarakhand, Uttar Pradesh, Sikkim, Assam, and Arunachal Pradesh. I may not be very correct as far as Assam is concerned, but these are the states which have a large border with China. And over a period, the economic growth of China has been much faster than India. And it has been able to develop its infrastructure in a very, very rapid pace, including roads, lines of communications hub, very close to the border in Tibet. While India is also catching up, but the level of development is asymmetrical. That is, China is in a more advantageous and a more better state of development. Because of our border issues, Russia and China and Pakistan have also colluded. Thereby, China has extended armament and technological support to Pakistan, and thus there have been a certain amount of changes which are being contemplated by the Indian Army in order to ensure that both the adversaries, which is China and Pakistan, are contested and defended in a most optimal form. This is the broad overview that I wanted you to take about China. There is a lot to learn and study about this country, which includes its technological advances, its economy, its army, which has undergone a large modernization as of now, the border issues all along our northern borders, the Doklam issue, and the Galwan episode. You must have a clarity on all of this, and the Belt and Road Initiative, which China is undertaking with various countries of the world. I had shown you the map of the Indian Ocean. China has also indulged in what is known as a string of pearls strategy, wherein it is trying to get a foothold on various islands which are there in the Indian Ocean, thereby it will try to extend its influence in the Indian Ocean. And those who control the oceans would also be able to control the trade and have a very large leverage as a naval and a world power. You should also study about the various ports that China has undertaken to develop in countries in the Indian Ocean, which include Myanmar, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka. This all you should have clarity about so that you are able to understand the designs of China and how we should then have a policy in order to counter this. Okay, next we move on to Nepal. Now, Nepal, or what is known as the Federal Democratic Republic of Nepal, is a landlocked Himalayan country. It has got extremely close historical ties with India. In fact, the entire subcontinent has got the same flavor. It is only after the British had left that the subcontinent was divided into Bangladesh, or what is known as then the East Pakistan, or Nepal, or Sri Lanka, even parts of Myanmar, Afghanistan, Pakistan. There were just one subcontinent which had been, ruled and governed by a single entity over a large periods in history. In 2006, a secular democratic state was created in Nepal. Geographically, Nepal is inclined towards India because it is a landlocked country and the entire trade goes on from the land route with India. India also grants a sea access to Nepal from Calcutta, wherein containers and from which come by sea move from Calcutta to Nepal via India as a part of our treaty and concessions that we have given to this country. Also, the Indian Army traditionally and since the British times have been recruiting Nepalese into the Gurkha regiments. There is also a large number of treaties and concessions which are extended by both the countries to each other, including the waiver of visa and many economic and military ties and understandings. However, China has also tried to extend a large influence over Nepal. It has fostered communism there. It has also tried to improve the communications to the north of Nepal by getting in rail and road links as close as possible. This endeavor has been hampered because of the area or the terrain of that area is much more difficult. Whereas through India, the roads and the communication network is extremely well established over history, and because of the nature of terrain and the historical linkages that we have. Sher Bahadur Deoba is the Prime Minister as of now. There was a certain amount of turbulence and anti-India feelings because of various issues. What I want you to study now is the issue regarding River Kali, which has differing perceptions for both the countries. Also, the influence of China on Nepal. Nepal was also being used as a conduit by various terrorist organizations to move into India because of the ease of moving from India to Nepal and Nepal to India, because of our understanding and relaxation of custom rules. However, it is a fact that we are very, very friendly countries. There is a commonality of culture, religion, and there have been marriages between the citizens of two countries, between the royal families of the two countries, and because of this existing good bond, our relations are very good, and they shall be endeavored to be fostered even further. Okay, then is Bhutan. You'll have to pardon me for the size of the map, but it is a monarchy which is on to the north of India. This is known as the Kingdom of Bhutan. It is also known as the Dzongkha Kingdom, which is a constitutional monarchy. This country is a landlocked Himalayan country which has defined its self by declaring what is known as the Gross Happiness Index. Its aim is not to get caught too much into modernization, but to ensure that all the citizens are happy citizens. Jigme Khesar Namgyal Wangchuk is the present monarch. I would want you all to understand and know what the Doklam issue was and how the Chinese influence was extended into Bhutan by them trying to claim certain areas. I would also want you to research the strategic significance of Bhutan, because it being very close to what is known as the Siliguri corridor would make China very, very dangerously close to our chicken neck of Siliguri, and because of this area has assumed a lot of significance. With this, we'll move on to the next country, which is Myanmar. Now, Myanmar is towards the northwest of northeast of our country. It is a Buddhist country with age-old ties with us. I have been personally to Myanmar, and Buddhism has had a lot of influence in this. It is known as the Republic of the Union of Myanmar. The capital is Nay Pyi Taw, and Rangoon is the largest city, with 88% of the people being Buddhists. So with this, you must study the Rohingya refugee crisis as a aim plus. Now, as far as the governance is concerned, it is governed by what is known as a unitary parliamentary assembly, which is an independent republic under military dictatorship. Recently, in 2020, there were elections. However, the ruling League for Democracy under the Aung San Suu Kyi, who is a Nobel laureate, was leading. But the smaller parties declared that there has been irregularities in the conduct of the elections, while the election commission said that the irregularities are very minor. The military took advantage of this. They rejected the elections, and Aung San Suu Kyi was placed under house arrest. And thus, the situation, as far as the political stability of the country is concerned, has been precarious. However, it is an important country for us because it has got large borders with us in Nagaland, Arunachal Pradesh, Manipur, and Mizoram. China has also been trying to extend influence and has been able to do so in the central and the northern parts of Myanmar. We, on our part, have also been trying to assist them in development projects, and notable amongst this is the Indo-Myanmar-Thailand Friendship Highway, which is under progress as of now. We require to continue our strategic cooperation with Myanmar and also build security ties. So, in addition, you must research the Coco Islands. You must also research the support that Myanmar is extending to some of the insurgents in the northeast. Though the army does not recognize it, but insurgents and Naga groups of the northeast have been able to find refuge in Myanmar. You should also be able to understand the influence that China is able to exert in this country because it is rich in minerals, and also have the basic knowledge about the governance and the governmental crisis that is going on here. Next is Bangladesh. Now, the People's Republic of Bangladesh is the 8th most populous country in the world. It has got a population of 163 million. Bengali is the biggest language, and 90% people speak are Islamic. It's an Islamic republic, and it declared independence from Pakistan on 26th March 71, and they celebrate the Victory Day on 16th December 71. The Prime Minister as of now is Sheikh Hasina. President is Abdul Hamid, and the bilateral relations between India and Bangladesh have been friendly. The historical land boundary agreement with Bangladesh was signed in 2015. The biggest turning point in the history of this country has been the 1971 war, wherein the Mukti Bahini, with support later on from the Indian Army and the Indian Defence Forces, was able to secure freedom from itself, from the tyrannical rule of Pakistan. Pakistan had been conceived or taken birth as in two parts, East and West Pakistan. The entire governance and the focus of the growth and polity was on West Pakistan, and East Pakistan was neglected, although it was much larger in population. And thus, when after the elections prior to 1971, in spite of having a larger majority, the governance was still at the hand of the West Pakistanis. It caused a lot of heartburns, and thus this independence movement started, which finally fructified in 1971. The issues that you have to know and be aware of should be the Farakka barrage, the various contentious issues between the two countries are the Farakka barrage issue, which is on the sharing of the waters of the Hooghly River, the Teen Biga corridor transfer lease, the crisis which has occurred because of the influx of illegal immigrants or migrants from Bangladesh into India, and the smuggling and the fake money rackets, etc., illegal activities that go on in the border. So you should be aware of that, besides knowing, of course, the background of the 1971 war. And as of now, the relations are on an upswing. It is important for these two countries to continue to prosper together. And since if we are able to align and have a better understanding, then our trade and economy will gain. As of now, India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh have common economic strengths. Basically, we are into textiles, into raw materials. So we continue to compete with each other rather than trying to diversify or create a more harmonious understanding as to how we should gain. This is as far as Bangladesh is concerned. We'll now move on to Sri Lanka. Now, Sri Lanka or the Democratic Socialist Republic of Sri Lanka is to our south. We again have ties with Sri Lanka starting from the era of Ramayana. Gotabaya Rajapaksa is the president and he is the head of the state. In 1986 to 89, the Indian Defence Forces had intervened as a peacekeeping force in Sri Lanka. Firstly, they entered with the aim to foster a treaty between the government of Sri Lanka and the LTTE. However, LTTE withdrew and took up arms, after which the Indian army had to be called in, and the other factions such as the EPRLF were supported. This led to a major and a long-term conflict, which has now been contained. As far as the foreign relations are concerned, Sri Lanka has been a founding member of the non-aligned meet. We have close economic ties with India being the largest economic partner of Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka has got a strategic position in the Indian Ocean. There are a large number of agreements, including naval agreements. So what all? There has also been in the news the fact that China has tried to, or China has developed the post of Hambantota for the Sri Lankans, and now a stage has come where this loan for the development of infrastructure in this port could not be repaid by the Chinese, and the lease, and thus they have taken over this post. So this is nothing but economic invasion of these countries by China, which they should be aware of. India has also a number of infrastructure and various developmental projects in Sri Lanka, and because of this bad experience of Hambantota, the country is now veering back towards having India as the main trading partner. You should all be aware of the background of the IPKF involvement and also of the various maritime treaties that we have with Sri Lanka. Now we move on to the last and the smallest of all these countries, which is the Maldives. Now the Maldives is also known as the Republic of Maldives. It is a small archipelagic, means a collection of small islands, states in the Indian Ocean, which is 700 kilometers from the Asian continent mainland. The capital is Malé. The president is Ibrahim Mohammed Soleh. And one of the factors that Malé has been in news is because of the fact that it has suffered from climate change. And the country is soon submerging. And maybe after a few decades, there may be no Malé at all. So the threat of the climate change and global warming is very, very apparent as far as this island nation is concerned. India, of course, shares maritime borders with Maldives, and it contributes to maintaining security in this region. We have a large number of treaties with them, and we have good military relations with them, with exchange of courses, military courses, and training exercises, both naval and military, that take place. So with this, I have covered all the 9 countries and given you a broad overview. As I said, this is just a primer, and you will have to divide amongst yourself and make fact sheets for these countries and circulate it to each other so that you can understand the data better. And I want to assure you that SSB is not GK centric. However, when you discuss with this background, you should be able to know as to how can India contain China, or what should India do so that it continues to have a good cordial relationship with the countries like Nepal, Myanmar, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Malé, which have been supporting us and which have historical ties with us. You should be able to recommend as to how India should deal with both the countries together, like either China and Pakistan, in case it is forced into a conflict with each of them. Also, you should be able to know the situation in Afghanistan and what is the likely scenario. And in case the Taliban are able to come to power, then what should be done by India in order to neutralize or negate any ill effects. I've been, following the time directions that have given to me. So you've got about 6 or 7 minutes to interact with me. In case you have any comments, suggestions, or any specific questions, you're most welcome.
Thank you very much, sir. Okay, students, if you, in case you have any questions, you can directly ask or type it in the chat box.
Just a sec, I'm not able to hear, please.
Just a minute, sir. Can you hear me, sir? Hello.
Can you see me?
Yes, sir, I can see you and hear you, sir.
Okay, then,
so
you can continue. Only that my volume is gone a little low, but please okay. Continue.
So you can remove the slides now, so that we can see here, sir. Okay, friends, anyone wants to ask anything, you can type a question in the chat box, or you can just unmute yourself and directly ask, sir, any issue you want to talk. Or otherwise, I will be discussing 1 or 2 points with sir, in case none of you have any issues. I was seeing most of you are writing it down. It's very good. And like sir said, a very good suggestion that you can share with each other. So what we'll do today is one country, randomly each one of you can choose and write about 1.5 page on the relations as well as the data. And then you can share it in the WhatsApp group. And like that, randomly, I'm sure each 50 of you are here. When you share, all countries will be covered. Sir, a small question till the time students are thinking, probably they are, I think, awed by our presentation. You have been on Myanmar. I know you have commanded brigade there on Myanmar border. And sir, what kind of, in the long run, because generally we get a feeling that Myanmar is too inclined towards China and military ties with China are quite strong. However, India is always supporting democratic values of Myanmar. Now with the military takeover, are our relation going to probably we'll have to accept the military regime again, or it's going to go again into a frigid kind of era? What do you feel with that, with Myanmar? Sir, can you hear me?
I've not been able to, hear. Is there anything you wanted me to say?
Sir, I basically I was asking about Myanmar with the military takeover again. What do you think is the India's stand going to be? Because we have always supported democratic Myanmar and not military Myanmar.
Absolutely. It was, in fact, going towards a very positive trend with the democracy setting in. But you are aware and we are aware it was military which was calling the shots all the time. In fact, the entire economy of that place is being run by the military commanders. I had been there and we had stayed in a hotel which was owned by one of the generals. So while the democratic leaders were, there in governance, however, they were always subjugated, and this coup will certainly set the country back by decades. So let's hope, because of diplomatic and international pressure, the elections are held again, and the earlier efforts of giving Nobel Peace Prize to Suu Kyi, and also by the economic blockade that was carried out, was able to force the military from relinquish certain amount of its hold. So let's hope in this direction. But overall, I've also seen that the international community is not able to very strongly make any dramatic changes. You can see Afghanistan, the the Taliban's are being given a free hand, and even a superpower country like the US had to withdraw. Similarly, while a lot of countries continue to watch, but they are not able to actively interfere, and most of these countries detest from getting in physically into
So,
some sort of way, and all they try to do is by diplomatic means, which may not be enough.
yes, yes. Sir, one question student has asked is that what is the chances of China taking over Pakistan, sir?
Yeah, you see, firstly, Pakistan has been an established country. It has got the fourth largest army in the world. So this misadventure is not a likely scenario at all. What it will take over, and it has already done, is the economic taking over. If you follow the news, all along the CPEC corridor, that is the China-Pakistan economic corridor, the Chinese firms have taken over this entire area. The Pakistan army is guarding this area, and all the shots are being controlled by China. So what China does is it will offer to various countries development projects, and then it will draft certain contracts saying that, okay, we will develop it for you. However, you will have to take, say, these many billion rupees or dollars of loan from us. And one of the conditions will be that this infrastructure will be made only by the Chinese firms. So China is win-win. It is able to deploy its money. It is able to exert influence by giving employment to its firms, to its companies, and it is also able to offload its exports in terms of cement, steel, technology. So it will gain in all the three ways. And in case the host country is not able to repay the loan, which is most likely in most of the cases, like African countries or even Pakistan for that matter, then the conditions in the contract are so stringent that they virtually end up taking over control of that area. So what they are doing by proxy is economic conquest, and of course not physical conquest.
Right, right, right. Right, sir. Thank you so much. And there being no other questions, I'm sure the students have taken down the notes. And thank you so much for such elaborate, though you had said it will be broad brush, but it has been very elaborate, I think. And all the important points which you have brought out along with the maps, if they note it down, I think that's enough for them to showcase